Welcome to the WWE podcast for this WrestleMania Backlash preview show, and it feels good again. Why? Because we've got Ashley Mann back to talk about WrestleMania Backlash, give her thoughts, how she's doing, discuss her own podcast that I'd encourage you guys to go listen to, and so much more. So let's not delay. We've got Ashley back on the show. Let's get into it right after this.
Are you ready to live a more free, healthy, and abundant life? FoodForestAbundance.com is a community of passionate, freedom-loving people who want to build a free, healthy, and abundant society for generations to come. They're focused on creating a decentralized food supply by setting up forests on underutilized lawn space around the world. And this is just the beginning. They offer landscape design, blueprints, installation, maintenance tips, and a whole lot more. In these uncertain times, you want the peace of mind of having food security right outside your front door. They plan on growing food forest in every community, providing healthier food free from the supply chain. To learn more, visit foodforestabundance.com. Use the code FOOD22 and save 5%. foodforestabundance.com.
So in today's crazy world, you need to be ready to defend yourself. I mean, that's just the reality of things. People are getting assaulted on the street, robbed, home invasions. So with all this spike in crime, what better way to spend your time than investing in yourself, in your safety, in your family's safety? That's why I'm recommending Impact Defense. ImpactDefense.online is an opportunity for you to learn how to defend yourself in multiple situations. They have a podcast, by the way, that is done weekly, and you can check it out. It's on ImpactDefense.online. They have training that's in person. They have online courses. You can host an event and a lot more. But this is run by Brian, and he has over 20 years in the martial arts and self-defense industry. He's a certified combatives instructor. He's certified in defensive firearms, and he has a black belt in multiple styles of martial arts. He's also joined by two ladies, Jada and Kylie. Both of them are black belts in martial arts and certified firearm instructors as well. Again, their podcast releases every single Monday, a brand new episode. You can check out impactdefense.online for much more information. But guys, I can't stress enough right now, there is nothing more important than your safety. I don't know about you, but when I'm lying in bed and I hear a creak in the house, you always wonder, right? It's either a ghost or you're thinking, oh my God, somebody broke in, right? And imagine the helplessness that you could feel in that moment. But let them help you overcome that fear. Let them help you protect you and your family. Go to impactdefense.online today.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me. It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the WWE podcast, and this is your Backlash preview and prediction show. As I said at the top, Ashley Mann is back. It just does not feel like a preview show without her, and you guys are going to enjoy our conversation. She has been with this show for I don't know how many years now, like 4 years since its inception, essentially, and I really appreciate her coming on here, and she's doing well with her own podcast that, again, I encourage you guys to go listen to. It's called Kick Ash, the Kick Ash podcast. And she'll tell you all about that in our conversation. But again, if you are just joining us for the first time, thank you. And thank you for choosing us. I think you'll enjoy us. I think we're a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of other podcasts. And I guess you're the judge of that, but we will see. And we're here to talk about Backlash. I'd invite you, since it's a premium live event week, formerly known as pay-per-views, to join us on Patreon, because we have a Discord server that is used throughout the pay-per-view as it's going on. We can discuss with each other in real time. There's a voice chat as well, if you rather would opt for that, in the Discord server that you get as part of your Patreon entry and your Patreon membership. For just $1, you get that. You get the exclusive After Dark show. You get ad-free everything. You get a shout out and so much more. So I'd encourage you on Patreon, search out the WWE podcast if you just want to get rid of the ads. Also, our website, wwepodcast.com. right now we are running a special. You get VIP access for 50% off your first month. It brings it down to $1.50. What's so special about that? Well, you get ad-free everything, of course, but you also get video that's available on our website for video updates that we do. And use the promo code Roman. That's the promo code Roman, ROMAN, and that'll get you 50% off your first month for just $1.50. So check that out if you're interested. So that's it for the plugs, guys. Let's just jump into it. I hope to hear from you all during the live event. Not tomorrow night, Sunday night. I'm used to Saturdays for some reason. Sunday night for the WrestleMania Backlash show that I think is going to be a good show. I have solid hopes for the show. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. You can follow us really anywhere on Twitter at wrestling_audio. You can follow us on TikTok at the WWE Podcast, and really everywhere podcasts are available. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me here. I'm going to sign off and toss it to myself and Ashley Mann right now. All right, everybody, welcome to the WrestleMania Backlash preview and prediction show. It feels like old times here right now. It feels like I'm back in yesteryear, but it just feels right that Ashley Mann joins me for a preview and prediction show. Ashley, I know that listeners have been really waiting to hear from you, and it's been too long since we've done a show. I mean, you and I have, we obviously talked when we met up down in Florida, but it's great to have you back on the show. How you doing?
It does feel like old times. When you were saying that, I was like, yes, that is so perfect. So it feels great to be back. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's proper that we're doing a preview show as well. So everything's just right in the wrestling world, or at least in our little wrestling world. But thank you so much for having me back.
No, definitely. And before we get going, everybody, if you didn't know, Ashley has her own podcast, and it's the Kick-Ash podcast. So, Ashley, I'll give you a second if you want to, go ahead and talk about that, where they can find it, and anything else.
Yes, that's amazing. Thank you. Yes, I do. So we are about 6 months into it now, which is kind of crazy to think about it. But yes, it is called the Kick-Ash podcast. It is obviously focusing on wrestling. I do rant and ramble about side things from time to time, but I try to narrow it down and keep it to wrestling and what's current on the topic. But it's just, I right now I look to do like a weekly review show, but looking to kind of grow, and then maybe, of course, if I can snag Matt at one point, I'd love to get him on the pod as well. But yeah, definitely feel free to check it out. It's again the Kick-Ash podcast, and I'd love any and all feedback. Any feedback is good feedback to me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And anytime you want me on there, I'd be glad to come on. And guys, go subscribe. You're on Apple Podcasts, right? So Kick-Ash podcast, and I know Spotify too. I've seen you on Spotify.
Spotify, yes, yep, Spreaker, yep. Pretty much anywhere. iHeartRadio now, so
perfect.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, no, great. So almost everywhere. I mean, like, guys, if you have a podcast app right now, go subscribe. Do yourself a favor, and I think you'd appreciate it. I'd appreciate it, and you'll enjoy it. So let's get into Backlash, or as it's now known since last year, WrestleMania Backlash, because they're squeezing every bit of branding that they can out of the WrestleMania name. And overall, before we get into the card, I always ask this because I think it may capture some things that may not get discussed during the matches as we go through them. How do you feel overall about the WWE product? Are you feeling post WrestleMania like, okay, this is worthy of post WrestleMania? I know we usually go into a dip after WrestleMania. It's kind of the WrestleMania hangover. You don't usually have very high expectations. But as you look at this card, Cody and Edge and Happy Corbin, how do you feel as a whole about the product and where they're at?
I think as a whole, I would probably grade them as like a C+. And it's weird because certain things I enjoy, like for instance, like the Cody Rhodes thing. I think they're doing very well with his presentation and pretty much just taking the Cody Rhodes from AEW and the Cody Rhodes that he envisioned himself as, and just plopping him into their world and just letting him pretty much do it almost exactly what he did in AEW. So things like that I'm really enjoying. I mean, could it be better? Yeah, but for the WWE landscape and what we normally know them as, I think for that in particular, they're doing pretty well on. But then things on Smackdown, it's kind of lacking as well. It's a situation where literally, like, if you don't have Roman Reigns on the show or the Usos or anything in that realm, it's kind of lacking, and it's a big absence. So I don't know, and not to get in too detail here, but because we'll obviously get into it when we talk later on the match itself, but with Roman Reigns having both titles now, it really, like, I was willing to kind of wait and let it play out and see how it goes, but it's really causing an absence. When he's not on the show, the championship is missing, obviously, and you really feel it, especially with Raw being 3 hours, a lot of factors play into it. So as a whole, it's not the worst, but when it sucks, it sucks. You know what I mean? You really feel it, but it could be worse. So I'm trying to continue to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I'm probably around there. Yeah, I'm around there. I'd give it a half a grade higher. I'd say B minus.
Yeah, I was hovering.
Yeah, so I'm a tick above where you're at. It's when you look at the card and you compare it to WrestleMania, it's a bit stark in contrast. Or actually, I should say it's a bit interesting because a lot of programs started at WrestleMania instead of ending at WrestleMania. Like Bobby and Omas was their very first match. Edge and AJ Styles, their very first match. Cody and Seth Rollins, their very first match. Like when you look at that, it's like, wow, that almost never happens where the first match is at Mania. Not a complaint. It's just a different dynamic this year. Right. And it's also amazing that one of the main events of WrestleMania for night one, Kevin Owens, one half of that main event, isn't even on the card. Like, I mean, it just shows you that for some people, they have no follow-up at all. I mean, so are you surprised that Kevin Owens isn't involved on the show at all? I know he's kind of involved in an Ezekiel storyline. He's obsessed with proving that Ezekiel is actually Elias. But are you surprised about Kevin Owens not even being on the card after main eventing WrestleMania, bringing Stone Cold Steve Austin out of retirement?
I hate to say it, but no, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised just because that was kind of my hesitation going into it. Of course, it turned out to be a wonderful night. I'm so happy for that. Kevin Owens got that moment, and it was Stone Cold looked fantastic. It was such a cool moment, right? And in a lot of ways, Stone Cold, like himself, proved me wrong, and I had to eat some of my words, you know what I mean? Just seeing what he was able to do out there. So it was definitely a cool moment, and looking back on it, I wouldn't change how it played out for Kevin. But it's more on WWE just not really having a direction for him. And I think, like I was mentioning earlier, it kind of falls back onto the fact that there's really no focus, especially on Raw, without there being a championship. I mean, granted, the championship itself is normally kind of in its own realm, but at least there's a main objective on the show, right? And that kind of eats up some of the time and the focus. But and it kind of also plays into the fact that they don't really take their secondary championships that seriously as well. So there's, again, like I said, like a lot of factors. But for Kevin, I think he's one of those guys or one of those characters for that matter that kind of suffers without any direction. Granted, if anyone can get away with doing this crazy bit with Elias and Ezekiel, Kevin Owens is perfect for it. But it just sucks for him because, you want to see him do more and you want to see him in a more serious role, but I'm not really surprised. And for that token, too, before I toss it back to you, it's kind of like a shout out to him as well, that he can literally go from like main eventing WrestleMania on one of the nights to just kind of doing this weird stuff. And like you said, being obsessed with Ezekiel/Elias. And I don't know, do you view him differently yourself? Like, do you view him in a different light now?
I think that this was, it was a career-defining moment. I honestly don't believe that Kevin Owens will have a bigger WrestleMania moment. I think out of his entire career, and he's still got a lot of days ahead of him, I still think that this will be it. How can you top bringing one of the biggest names of all time back, main eventing WrestleMania with him? That's it. He knows that was the top of the mountain. Even if he wins the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, even if he was the one to beat Roman's streak, you could argue that's not bigger than trying to take out Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event of WrestleMania. So that was it for him. But do I view him differently? Yes, but in a good way. To me, you look at him and you're like, all right, like he's doing something kind of insanely irrelevant right now. You talk about a fall off a cliff from Stone Cold Steve Austin to Ezekiel. It's really it's sad, but also I applaud Kevin for going all in on this and actually making it somewhat hilarious. making him take lie detector tests and everything, and going all in on it, just obsessed. Every time Elias is out there or Ezekiel, he's just screaming, "You're a liar!" Yet he is consistently proven he's a liar and a character. So I think that right now, yes, I view him differently, but in a bigger light. Like, I know that this is a holding pattern for him, and they could shoot him to the main event at any time. So yeah, I do view him differently. But overall, I mean, look, like, they very rarely have follow-up programs after WrestleMania that are solid that they can fall on. Like, look what they did. They didn't even have anything for Roman Reigns. I mean, Roman Reigns went with Shinsuke Nakamura, and we're all supposed to forget that he attacked Shinsuke, and it just never happened. I mean, just flash us like if we're Men in Black. Just use the memory eraser. I mean, that's essentially, yeah, it's just bizarre. And so it just proves that time and again, they got to WrestleMania this year, and more than any year that I can remember in history, it was not only an underwhelming Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. SmackDown was a little bit better, but it felt subpar for just a normal Raw, much less a Raw after Mania, and it showed they had nothing at all planned for that show, with Roman Reigns coming out at the end of that show and just cutting a promo like, hey, I'll tell you what my next step is on Friday. Yeah, it's just, see you Friday. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And now, I mean, he's on Raw, but he's not doing much. I don't know how they're going to work with these championships. It's unified, but are they going to defend it separately? Like, I don't think they know. And it's like they got to WrestleMania. I said this on my review last night. I said, it's like they got to WrestleMania, and everyone in creative just sat back and were like, whew, all right, well, that's done. And then somebody 20 minutes later says, so, well, what are we doing next? They just kind of look around, like, and that's how it
Which
felt.
Is a shame.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. You know, like they should be able to take a break, you know, and especially for something of that caliber. Because if you are comparing it to like the Super Bowl of this industry, then, you know, you should be able to take a break. So, I mean, and that, of course, is a whole other topic in and of itself. But yeah, it's sad because, like you said, like in the Raw, and it was very jarring, the Raw after WrestleMania, with it turning out to be what it was. I mean, I think, gosh, I don't even know how many weeks ago it was now, the week where Asuka came back and Mustafa Ali, like, that felt like a bigger deal than the initial Raw after Mania, and that's just kind of crazy to me. Yeah, it really was. It was a really good show. So yeah, it's and that's why I said earlier, it's just kind of weird. Like, certain things they're hitting on, and it makes you enjoy the show, and it doesn't seem like a chore to watch it. You know what I mean? But other things, it just really makes you wonder, like, why am I investing my time? So it's just kind of a cluster.
Yeah, it is. It is right now. But let's jump into the card. I'm going to start with Cody and Seth, and I'm going to toss it to you first. What do you think? Who wins and why?
Okay, so with this one, I'm just going to be honest. I'm really going to be upset if Cody loses here. And I'm kind of scared that he's going to with WWE. Like, I don't, and again, like I was saying earlier, I do try to give them, and I am trying to give them the benefit of the doubt in a lot of things. So this one is going to be one of them. My official pick is going to be Cody. But part of me, like, I'm not going to be surprised if they give Seth the win and try to continue this going forward. But because of course, in my opinion, if Seth loses, it's going to be really hard to continue. Seth is, I guess, one of those characters, kind of like a Kevin Owens, where he can talk his way into anything. So maybe he doesn't necessarily need the win to continue this, but my official pick is Cody. Like I said, I think needs the win more than Seth right now, and especially with him just being here in WWE, a little over a month at this point. Maybe it's a month to the day. I have to check the dates, but I don't know. I feel like it would be a big mistake if they pull the trigger on his first loss happening, regardless on if Seth cheated to win or outside interference or anything like that. My opinion, I think it would do more harm than good on Cody for that matter. So I'm sticking with Cody. And like I said earlier, I do have to give them credit for the presentation of Cody and what they've invested in him. And I think it is, whether it's a sign that they are more open to change now and more open to listening and just letting others be themselves, or maybe this is like a crack in the foundation of that, or that wall, that barrier. But I don't know. I'm giving them hope in that regard. So yeah, I feel like with all the negativity I sometimes throw, I have to give them credit when it's due.
Yep. No, I think they've done a very nice job of this program. A very nice introduction to Cody. He doesn't feel like he's been WWE-ized. He feels much like he did in AEW, and I think that's what he wanted to bring over. I think it's been successful. As far as the quality of the match here, I think it's going to be very good. I don't think it'll be as good as the WrestleMania matchup, only because it's really hard to duplicate a performance like that. I think they did very good at WrestleMania. I mean, their match was, it had some botches, but I think it was really, really well done, and I don't think they'll be able to duplicate that. I'm not going to hold the bar that high. I do think they'll have probably a B+ match, still very good, but I'm not going to hold them to that same standard. That said, I'm going to go and I'm going to preface this by saying, don't change your pick. Every time I bring somebody on here, and I've done it to multiple people over don't change. I don't care what kind of case I make right now. You're sticking with Cody Rhodes. I mean, I'm going to go with Seth Rollins. Cody. Yes, no, good. I'm going to go with Seth, not just to be combative, but because I think he will win this because, like you said, I think there will be a third match to this at Hell in a Cell in a month. I think this will be a 3-match program. Ultimately with Seth Rollins losing, of course, because that's what his character does best, which I think is damaging to his character. I know that he can talk himself into a match, and he's a really good talker. He knows his identity. He's found himself. He's found his character. He's found his music. He's got it all working, but creative has shown time and again that he loses the big one. He'll lose the big one. He'll lose the big one. He may get those wins that are in between to just get you to the next step to make sense there's another match, but he very rarely over the last few years has won the big one. And to me, I think this is going to be another sacrifice of Seth Rollins taking or winning here ultimately to just lose the program to Cody, and maybe inside the cell or just at the pay-per-view or at the premium live event next month. So I think Seth actually needs the win more than Cody, because Seth right now he's on a losing streak, and he needs to actually show a little bit of credibility. He needs to have something that the fans, that believe he's a credible heel, to sink their teeth into, because he talks you into that match, but you're like in the back of your head, well, he hasn't really shown that he can win the big match, so I have no real faith that he can, and they very rarely have shown that. So that's why I think Seth wins, to just get you to that next match that ultimately Cody Rhodes takes the victory for and then moves on.
No, I get it, dude. I get it. You make total sense. And in fair game, like I'm a Seth Rollins fan as well, so I wouldn't be terribly mad if just because like I said, I'm a big Seth Rollins fan as well. But I still have to stick with Cody. Like my opinion, I feel like he needs it more. So let's say, how do you think Seth would win then? So if your pick is Seth, do you think he's just going to win clean? Do you think he's going to do something to cheat to win? Someone's going to interfere? Like, do you think it's just going to be a clean loss?
No.
Then Cody's out for revenge? Like, so how do you think it would?
Yeah, no, I think it's a dirty victory in some form, fashion, or just lady luck. Something ends up, a rope breaks, or something. Like something, it falls in his favor, or it's, a thumb to the eye, or some kind of foreign object, or, low blow behind the ref's back. Something along those lines to anger Seth or to anger Cody that would perpetuate a third match, maybe inside the cell. We'll see. But yeah, that's also the out for Cody is, okay, he has a loss on his record, but it's a tainted loss.
Yeah, no, I totally, again, like, I get it, but like, I feel like with Cody, it's more emotional, right? So I just feel like Cody's going to get the W here, and for whatever reason, and it's probably because I'm stubborn, and I'll admit that, but I just feel like for whatever reason, Cody as a character with it still being so fresh, he needs the W here. And I feel like for someone, especially like Seth's character, with seeing what he's gone in, like the different levels he's gone to in the past, like showing up at Edge's house and stuff like that, like I feel like in order to evoke a Hell in a Cell match out of Cody, all Seth needs to do is just like tug on the heartstrings, right? Like go after Dusty, maybe attack the statue that they created of Dusty, that Cody, like you always see that picture of when they unveiled the statue of Dusty back in NXT, the picture of Cody, like just kind of leaning on it, and we obviously all know how emotional Cody gets regardless when anyone's talking about him, which, is understandable. So to me, I feel like if you want to go Hell in a Cell, which is obvious, and I'm totally down with that. And side note, can you even imagine seeing Cody in a cell match with no blood? Like, that's just going to be a sight to see. Like, I can't even imagine that. So
I would
watch it just to see that.
Nope. I would, if I had the money, I would wire it to Cody just to pay the fine he would have to pay to Vince that he purposely bladed himself.
Yes,
yeah,
for sure. I would go have to
set up a GoFundMe for let Cody blade. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap up so we can carry on here. But yeah. So, because you and I can go back and forth, but on it, But yeah, dude, I totally get what you're saying though, and it's weird because as being a fan of Seth, like, I would be okay with seeing him win, but at the same time, I would be mad to see Cody lose, you know?
But then there's 3 losses in a row for Seth. I mean, he doesn't get
Seth
any.
I get it. Yeah. Seth is fine. Like, the focus isn't on him.
I don't know. I mean, Seth is that good that he can bounce, but the problem, I don't know. Like I said, we could keep going here, but I just think that Seth Rollins, he needs something, even if it's this victory that is just the stepping stone. I think that's more important than this intermittent loss for Cody that's going to be tainted, that people know he's not a new talent that needs to go on this winning streak, that's the formula that happens every time they introduce a new talent like Veer Mahan, or whoever, Braun Strowman. They always go on these just tears where no one can beat them and they finally run into a roadblock. They all know who Cody is and what he's capable of. It's not like he can't take a loss, especially if it's somebody the caliber of Seth in a tainted victory just to get you to that final Hell in a Cell. I don't know. So, I mean, I think we both make cases here. Let's move on to the next match. This one is a little bit more difficult, I think. Probably as difficult. Edge and AJ Styles. And Edge and AJ Styles, Damian Priest is banned from ringside. I'm going to take this one first because I want to steal the thunder because I'm selfish. I want to take it, and the reason is because Damian Priest is banned. I think he'll remain banned at ringside. He won't show up maybe till the match is over to ultimately beat down AJ or whatever. I think the purpose of this is to introduce a new member to Edge's group because only Damian Priest is banned. Not anyone who is in favor of or tries to assist Edge. It's very clear it's only Damian. Fine, Damian's out. Well, then who is going to help Edge here? I think it's probably Ciampa, because nobody has a first name anymore. Ciampa ends up. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, what about Antonio Cesaro or Andrade Cien Almas? I mean, like
Rusev.
Rusev. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. But I think it's going to be Ciampa who ends up costing AJ Styles the match. I think AJ actually loses again. I think this is kind of in the same breath as Cody and Seth. Do they take 2 losses in a row? And so my guess is AJ loses here to Edge. I think Edge is on a hot streak with this group. I love this group. I love everything about it. I love how Edge is addressing the criticism about using the Undertaker lighting and how different his character is, but making the reasoning that these seeds were planted back when he was in the Brood and the Ministry of Darkness. That's totally plausible for his character. He's a master on the mic. I'm loving the chair he has to sit in, as it's very symbolic of sitting atop a mountain a mountain of omnipotence and just judging people. It's brilliant. So I think ultimately the purpose of this is to have Ciampa come in, cost AJ, Damian Priest maybe comes out at the end, and Edge gets the victory. Your thoughts?
And this is interesting because I'm going to use your logic for the Cody and Seth match and kind of steal it and apply it to this one, because I kind of feel the same way you feel about Seth with AJ rather. Like, I feel AJ is going to get the win here, so officially AJ is my pick for kind of a similar reason, because of the continuation especially with it being Hell in a Cell. Like, Hell in a Cell is just a perfect finale which is ironic as well. It be kind of being the third match for the third series, match in a few of these lineups here. But I just feel like AJ, it's funny because I as I'm about to say this, I'm thinking of what you were just saying. Like, AJ needs this win here. I feel like AJ has kind of lost, or maybe he hasn't lost anything quite yet, but he's on the verge of it. And I think Edge is strong enough to take a loss here, but I don't know. Like, I feel like something's going to happen and it's not going to be just a straight, clean victory for AJ. I'm not going to say AJ's going to cheat, but to be honest, I'm not even quite sure what's going to happen. I think something's probably going to backfire on Edge. And I can even see someone trying to debut, like you were saying, like a Ciampa come out and it backfiring on Edge, and that kind of infuriating Edge to lead them, maybe no pun intended, to Hell in a Cell. So I kind of see it going that way, in my opinion, or just that's how I would maybe do it. But again, it just depends on if they'd be kind of crazy not to at this point, if they are taking this to Hell in a Cell, and who they really want to kind of go over at the end of this little mini series here. If the goal here is to make Edge strong and his faction strong going forward and not put the focus on Styles, then, they need to continue to build Edge, and that would make more sense when you look back on it. But I just feel like AJ needs something, AJ needs something, especially being by himself.
He does, but I mean,
and with no title on. And then I'm sorry, not to
sorry.
kind of cut you off, but it kind of plays into what I was saying earlier. Like, I feel like AJ needs at least a strong win, because there's no other title or no other focus really for him on Raw. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, you almost convinced me, and then I'm sticking to my guns. That was close. Yes. But I'm sticking to my own rules. And so, okay, we're on opposite sides on both these matches. That's good. But I think that the thing with AJ Styles is that he's going up against a group that is just beginning and needs to get victory after victory to obtain heat. So this faction, and the whole point of this faction, as all factions are directed at, is to create new stars or help build existing stars to that next level. And Ciampa is a perfect candidate. Finn Balor, I actually tossed back and forth, and his name's been tossed back and forth of joining the group.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think he'll be the one. I actually think he'll maybe even the odds with AJ and come to his aid as he did on Raw. And I think with Finn Balor, for the reasons him not joining the group, he still could, but I would advise against it, because right now Finn Balor, he's in a weird spot. He's been irrelevant for a few months, so that's the case for it. The case against it is Finn Balor's already a made man. He's already a superstar. He's already made it to a very high level. To me, going into Edge's group would almost be a demotion of saying Edge is now mentoring Finn Balor. Finn Balor is a guy that's been on the scene for quite some time. He knows who and what he is. He's got a very successful in-ring persona. He knows who and what he is. His music's, one of the best entrance musics of all time in wrestling. I don't think it would help Finn Balor to be in this group. Finn Balor, if the purpose of the group is to help elevate existing or stars that are kind of floundering, I don't think that fits the bill with Finn. I don't think it's impossible, but I think right now AJ needs somebody on his side if Ciampa is going to be with Edge and Damian Priest is going to be with Edge, and I've heard Rhea Ripley. We've all heard Rhea Ripley. I don't know about Rhea, but to me, I think right now the growing and the heat needed for this group to grow is superseding what AJ Styles needs in his victory. Now, I know AJ, like you said, he's been kind of irrelevant in some respects too, being relegated to a tag team with Omas that we all were like, get out. Gets out, and Edge smartly said, I don't want that person who was in the tag team. I want the Pitbull AJ Styles. And so I think AJ, he could win this. And then Ciampa comes out to beat him down and just completely destroy him. So he gets the victory, but at the end of the day, that group still gets the heat. So maybe you could shoot two birds with one stone here, but I do think that AJ loses because of Tommaso Ciampa. So I don't know. I think we both, again, make good cases. And this, guys, as I say with certain matches on every card, don't put any money on these two. These are very difficult matches. Stay away from them. I think. Before I move on, did you have anything else to say about AJ and Edge?
No, we can move on.
Okay. Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss. Ashley, go ahead.
Gosh, I and I don't even know how I feel about myself for saying this, but I'm kind of like warming up to Madcap Moss, and I don't know how to feel about it. Like, he obviously needs to lose the suspenders. Like, he just needs, that whole thing is just, that should have been like that next week after him and Corbin like officially broke up, or they realized they weren't laughing at each other's jokes anymore. And I will say, it just to kind of catch up, since the last time you and I have spoken, but when they did first start brawling that night, that reaction he got on SmackDown, I was shocked by. Like, I did not expect people to erupt for him like they did, and just kind of carrying on from them. Like, he's kind of really impressed me. Not that I didn't really think he wouldn't on the main roster, but with how WWE changes things, of course, going from Riddick Moss to this version of Madcap Moss now, I don't know, he obviously could have gone a completely different and more serious direction, but it's strange. This has probably been the best route for him, and this is probably like the best thing that could have happened to him, going this kind of goofy and just non-serious character route, and then leading to Corbin, because a lot of people hate on Corbin, but like you and I have spoken about in the past, like I'm not his number one fan, but I think Corbin is very solid. You know, like he's good in the ring. He's a good character. He's exactly what WWE needs. He's at the perfect level. So, and he's just kind of one of those guys that you can almost throw into any situation, and it may take a week or two if you're talking like a main event level, but he can almost slide in anywhere. So I think he's very valuable. But long story short, I'm actually going, and after I give all that praise to Moss, I'm actually going with Corbin here. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. I would be stoked if Madcap Moss won, because for all the reasons I just said, but I think Corbin's going to get the win here to kind of, I feel like a broken record, but kind of carry this on too. And I don't know what that says about WWE. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, you know, I think there's a lot more to pull out of this, whether it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. But yeah, I'm officially going Corbin. And then once they meet later on, I'll probably go Moss.
Are you ready to live a more free, healthy, and abundant life? FoodForestAbundance.com is a community of passionate, freedom-loving people who want to build a free, healthy, and abundant society for generations to come. They're focused on creating a decentralized food supply by setting up forests on underutilized lawn space around the world. And this is just the beginning. They offer landscape design, blueprints, installation, maintenance tips, and a whole lot more. In these uncertain times, you want the peace of mind of having food security right outside your front door. They plan on growing food forest in every community, providing healthier food free from the supply chain. To learn more, visit foodforestabundance.com. Use the code FOOD22 and save 5%. foodforestabundance.com.
So in today's crazy world, you need to be ready to defend yourself. I mean, that's just the reality of things. People are getting assaulted on the street, robbed, home invasions. So with all this spike in crime, what better way to spend your time than investing in yourself, in your safety, in your family's safety? That's why I'm recommending Impact Defense. ImpactDefense.online is an opportunity for you to learn how to defend yourself in multiple situations. They have a podcast, by the way, that is done weekly, and you can check it out. It's on ImpactDefense.online. They have training that's in person. They have online courses. You can host an event and a lot more. But this is run by Brian, and he has over 20 years in the martial arts and self-defense industry. He's a certified combatives instructor. He's certified in defensive firearms, and he has a black belt in multiple styles of martial arts. He's also joined by two ladies, Jada and Kylie. Both of them are black belts in martial arts and certified firearm instructors as well. Again, their podcast releases every single Monday, a brand new episode. You can check out impactdefense.online for much more information. But guys, I can't stress enough right now, there is nothing more important than your safety. I don't know about you, but when I'm lying in bed and I hear a creak in the house, you always wonder, right? It's either a ghost or you're thinking, oh my God, somebody broke in, right? And imagine the helplessness that you could feel in that moment. But let them help you overcome that fear. Let them help you protect you and your family. Go to impactdefense.online today.
Welcome back to the WWE Podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
This is our first match. I would agree with the outcome. I think that Corbin probably does get the victory, although you could make a case like Madcap Moss, who's on the rise, needs the victory. I think that giving him a little more sympathy and trying to get behind him of like, oh man, I want to see you beat Corbin, and that's the payoff. It's just psychology 101, and I think that you're right. It to me, Corbin gets the first victory, and then maybe the second and third one are Moss, who finally gets those victories and closes out the program. But you're right. The Madcap Moss transition has been, I think, successful. It hasn't been wildly successful, but I think it's been as good as it could have. You could have expected it to be. The suspenders, to me, the jury's still out on that. There's some weeks I'm like it's obnoxious. Other weeks I'm like that's kind of an endearing, ridiculous look. I'm split. I'm not sure on that yet. But his jokes, I think there's something there that you could work with where he insults his opponent in a hilarious, actually a way that makes the crowd laugh, like he did when he insulted Corbin. That's the transition from these just stupid eye-rolling jokes that they were intended to be to actually making fun of his heel opponents, which is what's going to endear him to the crowd, his energy, his in-ring ability. I mean, didn't he got dumped on his head a few weeks or a month ago, whatever. I mean,
yeah, right before Big E.
Yeah, and we're like, oh my God, is he dead? And he came unscathed away from that, thank God. So I think that on top of the fact that he can go in the ring and he's proven it, he's not just this bodybuilder look. He can actually work really well. Fans recognize and appreciate that, and he's got a gimmick that is slowly starting to, I think, gather some steam with the crowd. So I think it's a nice slow build for Moss, but I also think that taking this loss here is going to help him long term because the crowd's going to want to see him get that victory over Corbin and get revenge on Corbin. So Corbin's going to cheat to win. That's ultimately what's going to be the case. I don't know how, but it does end up being a heel victory here. So right now, as I'm looking down here, I actually have every heel so far winning on the pay-per-view. So it's going to be a lot of, if things go the way I think they're going to go, the pay-per-view is right now very heel heavy. But what are your thoughts on, any final thoughts on Corbin Moss?
Yeah, and just to wrap it up on them, I think, like you were saying about the fans and his jokes and everything and the transitioning, I think the fans, as much as this may shock WWE, they're not dumb. Like, the fans can see and appreciate what he's doing now, especially now that he's not being like a dumb character and not being blinded by Corbin's influence or anything like that as a character, of course, and seeing Corbin for what he is and still it's kind of like a twofold thing, right? Like, fans understand like this is what he is supposed to be doing, but he's doing well at it, and he's really embracing this singles role. So I think it's like an appreciation thing too. And I think fans, and maybe I just maybe speak for myself, like it's cool to kind of start this little journey with him, because I feel like he could be something. I'm not saying he's going to be the next breakout star, but I think he could be something solid for them going forward after this. So that was just kind of like my final thoughts on Madcap Moss and Corbin. Yeah,
and I think the match is going to be fine. The match quality will be just fine. I mean, I had no concerns about how good it's going to be. It'll be something that is respectable and good. It has the chance to be very good if given enough time. But I'm not going to hold it to that standard. I think it'll be just fine, and Corbin gets the victory. So I think we're on the same page there. But let's move to Lashley versus Omas, and I'm going to toss this one to you again because I'm split on this too. This has so far been a little difficult, but Ashley, what are your thoughts on Lashley and Omas?
Yeah, and this is one of those that, again, pains me to even bring myself to say this, but because I'm sure by this point my feelings on Omas, but I don't want to say it, but I feel like Omas is going to get the victory here, and I think it's going to be all thanks to MVP. I feel like maybe I'm taking what is, in my opinion, very obvious, and holding too much light to it. But I think this whole thing is set up for MVP to interfere to get Omas his first real big victory, essentially, because he was just having squash matches before. But I'm not a fan of Omas, and it still irritates me, and I don't really know why. Like, he's not horrible. Like, he's we've obviously seen much worse, and I just don't know. I think it's the fact. Well, I do know one thing that irritates me. So I'll close with this, and then I'll toss it to you because I could rant about it forever for whatever reason. But it's when he comes out, he just, whether he, of course, was when he was with AJ, if they were trying to be good guys or whatever, or obviously the majority of the time being a heel, I just don't take him seriously. I just feel like he's holding back a laugh, like he's just out there. Like, I feel like he would be one of those, like, who was it? Raquel Rodriguez, her new name now, like just smiling nonstop. And it's like, just stop. And I feel like he's just obviously trying to hold it back because he's not supposed to be smiling. So for whatever reason, it's just one of those things that irks me, and, probably too much and unnecessarily so. But yeah, dude, I can't take him seriously. I'm just not about it. And adding on to that, I guess I do know why. As I'm using this as a little therapy session. Thanks, Matt, for Omas.
Yeah.
I think the fact too that they broke up Bobby Lashley and MVP was just, and again, I understand it, and I'm not even gonna say it's wrong. Me personally, my personal feelings, I just love the duo of MVP and Bobby Lashley together. I just love everything about it. So in of course, comparing the two, who probably needs MVP more? Omas, if you really want to take him seriously. But again, it's one of those two. Like, I don't think they're really going to take him that seriously. I feel like they would have done so already if they were going to. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like this is a waste. So, and I feel like, I don't know. Bobby Lashley's going to take the loss here, and I'm very upset by it.
All right. Well, we are now 2-2. I'm with you on this one as well. I think that Omas, and again, guys, I'm now 4 for 4 on heel victories.
It's going to be an evil night.
People are going to be pissed. I mean, there's going to be riots. I mean, but that said, so I'm with you about Omas taking the victory. Now, am I as annoyed by Omas? I wasn't until you started telling me why, and now I can't unthink it. So now I'm looking at him and I'm like, do I want to say he's kind of a big goofball? Like, but he's trying to hide it? Maybe.
And that's fine if he is, cool, dude. Like, embrace it. Like, and I'm sure he probably wants to and he probably can't, but like, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't fit. You know
so you feel like he's hiding himself through what he should be.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Got
and
it.
I don't even know what that would even look like. And I'm not saying like I want him to go out there and be like a madcap and cut jokes or exactly, or come out there dancing or anything crazy, but just I don't know, just whoever he is, just like let him be him. I feel like he's probably one of those dudes in the back who like gets along with everyone. He's probably like, like a good time. But we would never know because we don't see it. So I just feel like maybe I'm giving him too much hardship or whatever. But I don't know, Matt. So I'm sorry just to cut you off again.
Now you're turning me against Omas, and I was a solid fan. I was like, okay, I'm on board for this. But his range of emotion is very limited. I mean, he almost has as limited of range as Ronda Rousey does. We'll get to her match next.
Oh God.
So I think that Omas, as far as the match quality, we haven't even talked about the match quality. I think it's going to be okay. I think it's going to be exactly what you'd expect with Omas's limits, considering his size, but Bobby Lashley doing the majority of the bumping, as she should, given the size difference. But I think you're right. It's going to be a loss directly because of maybe a quick distraction from MVP, and they're using MVP clearly to try to help build Omas like he reinvigorated Bobby, and I get that. I understand that. MVP has truly been the MVP. I mean, he's lived up to his name, and him helping Omas, no problem there. And the payoff here is clearly going to be wanting to see Lashley get his hands on MVP. We're not going to see it here. We may see a tease of it, a quick appetizer, but I think the ultimate payoff of seeing Lashley get his hands on MVP is probably going to happen in Hell in a Cell. And maybe that's where he'll finally be able to trap MVP inside the cell or something during the match with Omas. I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's the payoff that I think people want to see, is not necessarily Lashley versus Omas. They want to see Lashley versus the guy that turned on him, MVP, and see him beat the holy hell out of him. So I think that this match is going to be okay quality-wise. What I want to see is if Lashley can like power slam Omas. I mean, I want to see that running power slam if he could do that on Omas. Some kind of maneuver that Lashley could pick him up and show his insane strength. that to me is the kind of thing I want to see. It's going to be a slower paced match, which is good because a lot of these matches are going to be fast paced, in your face, like flip flop fly, all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a nice palate cleanser to just kind of slow things down, and I'm totally fine with that. Every match doesn't need to look and feel the same. So, yeah, at the end of the day, long story short, Omas gets the victory because of MVP, and we continue to build that need to see Bobby destroy MVP. So, all right.
I agree.
Let's move on here. 2 more matches, and the only female match on the card. So that's really just amazing to me. I feel like we're missing something. That there's no Raw Women's Championship. I mean, none of that. There's no women's grudge match because they can't ever have a women's match without a championship involved. That's a whole other thing. But Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship, or according to Ronda Rousey, just the SmackDown Championship because she doesn't want to say women's. Again, another whole thing I could go on. But it's a I Quit match, and yeah, I was going to take it, but Ashley, I'll let you take this one. This one seems to lean definitely one way, but let's see if you choose that.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling this may be another one that we agree on, so we're I think leveling out here a bit. But I'm gonna say again to kind of bury the lead here. I'm gonna go with Ronda Rousey getting the victory here. I was one of those who was pretty shocked that I'm not gonna say shocked, but I was surprised rather that she didn't get the win at WrestleMania proper. So I think, especially with it being an I Quit match, I don't see them having Ronda Rousey lose an I Quit match. Even though it's obviously, it's wrestling. I just, regardless if they were going to try to do a callback to the I Quit match with The Rock and Mankind, have the piped in I Quit or anything like that. Yeah. Even if I just don't see them doing that here. And it's crazy as it is to think about even Charlotte saying I quit. It's just, I think it's more believable, or I would be more open to seeing Flair saying it than Ronda Rousey. And I kind of say that to get this out of the way, but I'm so ready for this feud to be over with. I'm ready for Ronda just to win the title. And it sucks. Like I'm trying to not go off on another tangent here, and to keep it, clean, but she looks like she doesn't want to be here. I mean, she's definitely improved since her initial return. I mean, she just looked like the most miserable person in the world. And hey, whether it just hit her, and she didn't realize how much she wasn't gonna like being on the road when she came back. I don't know what it was. And cool. If you're not happy, you have a right to not be happy. You know what I mean? But at the same token, you're getting paid a lot, caught myself, a lot of money.
You're saving me a lot of time on the edit side. Thank you.
I almost slipped up. A lot of money to perform in your Ronda Rousey. You have to live up to it. If now's not a good time, then do what you need to do and don't be on TV, but don't come halfway with it either. And I say that, and again, like I said, she has definitely improved, but those weeks just really stood out to me, and it just kind of really put a stench on this whole feud for me personally, if that's not obvious. And I just don't think they mesh. I wasn't a fan of them going into a singles match at WrestleMania to begin with. To me, it didn't make any sense that Ronda chose Charlotte. So, I guess kind of looking at the whole thing in a nutshell, I'm kind of, and maybe I'm biased, so please correct me once I throw it to you, or feel free to cut me off. I feel like maybe I was just sour on it from the beginning, because for me, like I was saying, it didn't make sense that Ronda Rousey makes this triumphant return at the Royal Rumble, wins the Rumble, and then doesn't challenge Becky Lynch. And I say that kind of speaking halfway. I say that because I appreciate what they did with Bianca Belair, and that was obviously a fantastic match, and I like the way that they played off how they started that whole mess at SummerSlam. But again, it didn't make sense to me. I know they're probably going to go for that match, Rousey and Becky Lynch next year at WrestleMania, and that's fine and dandy, but to me it just didn't make sense from the beginning. And like I said, I may just be kind of blinded or biased going into this whole thing, but I'm ready for it to be done. I'm over Flair. I don't even really know what she's going to do after this point, but I would love to see Ronda win so we can be done with that and then have Bayley return, because I just truly miss Bayley at this point. I feel like SmackDown is truly, truly missing her. So I don't know if she's ready to come back. I'm sure she is at this point, but yeah, I'm ready for this to be over with. If that, again, that's not obvious.
It's so weird to say that because of the names that I'm looking at.
And I love Ronda Rousey. Yeah, like I was a huge Ronda Rousey fan. I think her first one was great. Like I'm not hating on her, and I think she picked up the sport well. Like I think she's done her, due diligence, and not, like I don't get me wrong. Just to, give her props where it's due. It's just something's not clicking with this, and it's just weird.
It feels forced when it shouldn't feel forced. And it's just one of those things, even though there's a history with these two, you're looking at it going, why isn't this gelling? And again, I'm not a big Ronda Rousey fan. I actually don't enjoy most of what she does. Now, again, I respect what she's able to do in the ring. I respect what she's done in the MMA world. I don't like her demeanor in a lot of things, but that's me, and that it is what it is. And I think that in a lot of times she's actually disrespected the business, even if it's try to get quote unquote heat. There's been anyway.
Yes.
So
yes. I don't agree with everything.
So and I think she's got the emotional range of my 2-year-old. It's either super happy or super angry, and there's no in between. It's either she comes out smiling or she comes out with the angry face, and it's just like, can you give me something besides two extremes? Like I don't know. That's been a thing with me for Ronda her entire time, and her promos haven't been. Promos are hard to me. I think promos in a lot of respect are harder than in the in-ring. So I'm not saying that it's easy to do, but I don't know. There's been times where she's like whispering on the mic. I'm like, speak with some confidence. Like just speak like this is something that when you say it, everyone's going to believe it. Like, and a lot of times she's like whispering on the mic. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so I think with this matchup, the quality, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of the match at WrestleMania. I think this one's going to be just as good, if not better, because Ronda is an ultimate athlete, all that kind of thing. Still calling her the baddest woman on the planet, though. Is she still really, after how many years away from MMA? Like, what exact credentials does she have now to claim that? Whatever. So Ronda Rousey at this point is, it's hilarious that she's in an I Quit match, given that when you look at her history of losing, that's exactly what she does when she loses, is leaves. So like, look at Holly Holm when she was beaten MMA. She gets beat and loses and quits. Yes. When she's at WrestleMania 35, she loses and she quits. So it's hilarious that she's in this match. Do I think she's going to win it? Yes, I do. I sadly think she's going to win this. I think Charlotte at the same time needs a reset. So if she's going to be going away for a while, I think that's going to help her character. I think it's going to help SmackDown feel a little more fresh in the women's division with, Ronda's champion. That's fine. And like you said, I think Bayley is going to be that next opponent for Ronda. I think you're exactly right. And I think Bayley is going to get, it's going to be interesting because if that's the case and Bayley's the next opponent, Charlotte goes on vacation with her, her fiance for, however long. I think that what's going to be difficult to navigate is the reception that Bayley's going to get off the bat. Like, anytime, even if they're a heel, they leave and come back, they immediately are welcome with open arms. And so to navigate Ronda still maintaining the babyface character against a heel Bayley is going to be difficult. A returning Bayley is going to be difficult because I think Ronda, they're really going to miss the boat if they never turn her heel. I think she would be a fantastic heel, and I hope they explore that before she calls it completely quits in WWE. But that's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that if they do that.
Yeah, and final just tidbit here, like just to piggyback off what you're saying, I think that you're going to run into that issue regardless of where you return Bayley to, regardless of the show. You know what I mean? Like, it's either you have her return against against Bianca Belair and get like a huge response and have Bianca battle that, and who's stronger at that point too. You'll be looking at who can really combat that, and it's going to be another thing where they're going to force, and this isn't obviously a Bayley topic, but if they're going to force Bayley into the heel role like they did with Becky upon immediately returning, or if they're going to let her embrace it. But like you were saying, I think that they would be so foolish to not let Ronda just truly embrace her heel side and just let her run. I'm not even advocating necessarily, it's way too early at this point for Bayley to come back and of course beat Ronda or anything like that. But I think you could get a nice little feud out of it. You know what I mean? And let Bayley enjoy and rightfully so. Like, cause if you think about, and again, not going to go off here, but Bayley was doing phenomenal work and she was one of the MVPs in my opinion of like the Thunderdome era and during the pandemic and everything. And she still hasn't been back in front of a live crowd since everything happened. So I think it's only right to kind of let her embrace that and enjoy it just at least for a little bit, and just then if you need to turn her later, then have it. But I don't know. I just feel like it would be kind of wrong for both women, not to let Ronda be who she is and let her be a dominant heel champion and let Bayley be her old version, not go back to, of course, like the hugging Bayley, but it'd be cool to see what that new Bayley would look like. So I think they could really get a lot out of it. And like you said, let Flair go off and take some time off because she deserves it too. She's been carrying the division for quite some time, so she deserves it. I'm not hating on any of them. It's just what they've been dealt, but it's just time to move on.
And not only does Charlotte deserve it, she needs it. I think she just feels like she's a bit disengaged. I don't know if you've noticed. It just feels like Charlotte, I know the character is supposed to be heelish and kind of disingenuous, all that. But even, I don't know, you and I have been watching wrestling for so long that you can almost sense when they're not fully in the character. And it feels like Charlotte just wants to get away. Like it feels like she wants out right now. I don't know why I feel that way, and I'm not talking about her character. I'm talking about the person behind it. For some reason, I get that feeling. I could be completely wrong, but I'm just getting that sense of just total disengagement from what she's doing right now. I don't know why I feel that way, but anyway, so yeah, I mean, that's going to be interesting if they try to bring Bayley back as a babyface, but not the wacky waving inflatable tube men Bayley, but just who she is now, but just not the evil Bayley, just the one that is, I'm returning, love me, and we will. And I think they could easily do that. Ronda, it's sitting right there, and I think she'd be much more comfortable as a heel. She has it built in, like, I came here because this company needed me. Screw all of you for not supporting me. Like there's 100 ways you could go.
There's so many, yeah.
And Ronda just people were already starting to turn on her. I mean, like towards the end of that run, I think in her first run, people were ready to say, screw you. I mean, there was a lot of promos that were not good, and even now there are promos that you're like, she's insulting the crowd, like. I don't know. So I think that right now Ronda should be a heel. There's so much there. You could get months and months out of it. I think Ronda would embrace it because she could just tell the fans everything that she's been feeling without consequence and be genuine about it, which would, I think, also help her character. A lot of it feels a little bit disingenuous. So anyway, yeah, this is going to be a Ronda Rousey victory. Charlotte goes away. Bayley returns on SmackDown, and we're off to the races with Ronda and Bayley. That's probably where they're going. So, all right.
I hope so.
Main event time, Roman Reigns and the Usos versus Randy Orton, Riddle, and Drew McIntyre. Now, as of this moment, guys, we have not seen SmackDown at all. So if anything comes up on SmackDown, it's obviously not included here because we don't have a crystal ball. So just a little bit of a disclaimer there. So as of right now, there's nothing on the line other than pride and star power. That's it. There's no titles on the line right now. As of right now, it's not being billed as a unification match. It's just WWE looking at this going, we'll put the unification match aside that we've been talking about for a month and a half, and we're going to make it even bigger by having Drew and Roman for the first time in a while on opposing sides, even if it's in a 6-man tag. So I'm going to, again, toss it to you, Ashley, for your thoughts and predictions.
Yeah, dude, it makes no sense. It makes no sense, like you were saying, that you dedicate all this time and hype behind it. And I was really looking forward to the tag title unification match, not just because I want the division itself to be, unified or whatever, and it would just make more sense, but they were really doing a good job, and they were really selling me on the story, even though it kind of came out of nowhere with Roman just, I guess since he essentially had 2 titles, he wanted his cousins to have 2 titles, if I'm not mistaken, which, okay, makes sense. And they, again, were building to that, and I was digging it. And it's one of those things that I was saying earlier on that for me personally, you kind of feel foolish for getting invested in, because I was looking forward to that unification match, and then now they changed it to a 6-man match, which, okay, cool, but you change it from titles being on the line and it having these huge stakes, and maybe the possibility of WWE actually main eventing with a tag team championship match on a premium live event now. And of course the match itself would have been phenomenal. So it was just a lot of things building up to that match, and for them to just abruptly change it, and like you said, we don't know if they've added a stipulation or anything at this point, but going into it as of right now, if they're like literally nothing being on the line besides, like you said, bragging points or bragging rights, like it's just kind of like it just kind of like deflates the room, right? Like there's no reasoning for it either, and that's what's kind of frustrating as well. Like I guess it can make sense why Roman and Drew wants to get involved, which is fine, and I'm not even hating on the concept of the match. It's just that why would all of a sudden management and Adam Pearce be okay with literally stripping a big main event title match and then replacing it with a match that has essentially no stakes, and I think this could very easily be fixed with having it just a winner take all. And again, not even advocating that Roman obviously loses the title, especially in this way, like that would be absurd. But I think it's kind of a slap in the face if you don't put anything on the line at this point. And I think the stipulation, too, should be that if Drew's team loses, that he no longer can bring the sword out to the ring, and he has to be finished completely with the sword. And I'm just so over the sword. Like, it just kills me. So, yeah, my official pick, I guess I should say, it's kind of a toss-up, but I don't see Reigns taking a loss here soon, especially for something like this. So I'm going with, I guess, the Bloodline officially is their name, but the Usos and Roman. But, yeah, I feel like they could be getting so much more out of this match.
This is so many elements here. Number one, the sword. It's slowly grown on me, but I'm still not a fan of it. That doesn't mean I still want it. I actually would advocate against it. Why? It's the one weapon you bring to the ring that you know you're never going to be able to actually use.
Exactly.
Never.
Exactly.
Even the sledgehammer was able to be used because there's a creative way to do it that you're not going to kill somebody. In this case, you have exactly a 0% chance of ever actually using it on your opponent. You can swing all you want and threaten to swing. It's never, ever, 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 ever going to be used. And nor should it. It's just, I understand that it's unique. No one really has ever done the sword thing. So I get that. I get the visual. I get the symbolism. I get the meaning behind the sword with his mother. And that's all wonderful. But at the end of the day, we know as fans it's a prop. And it will only ever be used as a prop. Ever. 100% chance of that. So I agree with that. Now, as far as this match goes and why they changed it, it's very rare, I gotta say, because WWE does, I think, have respect for the goodwill of fans, and they try not to undermine it. And Vince has been on record many times in the past by saying, we don't like to advertise things we can't deliver on. And if we don't ever deliver on that, we'll try to either make good on it or present something bigger or better.
And they have. Well,
at least in their minds. In their minds, it's okay because adding Drew and Roman to the match makes it a, quote, bigger match. But you're still not giving us the titles that we were promised for 6 weeks about talking about this. And so I think that, again, they could still add the titles. Maybe they do that on SmackDown, and the winner of either team, the Usos would remain champion, or the Usos would become unified champion, or you'd have RK Bro become unified champion, even if Roman or Drew get the pinfall. So you could do it that way. They'd be essentially fighting on behalf of the team that they're on. So they could still add it. I would say they should, to add to the magnitude of this match. You're still delivering on the match, you said, but also adding Roman and Drew. I don't think they'll do that. I think it's going to be a straight up. This is all about getting Roman and Drew in the ring for the first time for a program that's probably going to go through SummerSlam or beyond. This is going to be a long-standing program, guys, so buckle up. And so I think that they'll probably deliver on the unification match at Hell in a Cell. I would actually like to see the Usos and RK Bro inside a cell. Imagine what those four men could do inside Hell in a Cell. So I think if they're going to deliver on it and make good on it, not only do we get that match at the next live event, premium live event, but we also get it inside a cell. If they do that, I'd be like, okay, I don't like it. You lied to us for 6 weeks and tried to deliver something bigger, which I don't think it really is. But you're also going to up the ante for the next time that we actually see it, when we actually see the match we were promised. So I would accept that. But long story short, who do I think is going to get the victory on this? If nothing is on the line, it's just pride. Yeah, probably Roman Reigns and the Usos, only because Roman Reigns is on that team and they don't want to put an L next to his name. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I'd say absolutely Drew and Riddle and Orton would win, because Vince likes to send the crowd home happy more often than not. So, wow, did I just pick every single heel to win this?
I think you did.
Every single heel wins.
Wow.
Which I don't think is going to. I'm definitely wrong. That at least probably 2 of the matches that tells me. But yeah, so Roman and Usos.
Now, really quick, who do you think is the main event? Do you think that's the main event? Because there was talk of like maybe doing Ronda and Charlotte as the main event, but do you think it's still the 6-man?
I actually. If they're going to send... Actually, no, I didn't pick every heel, because Ronda Rousey I did pick to win. I just view her as a heel in my head.
Yeah,
so I think what'll happen is, now that if the Usos and Reigns are going to win, you could make a case that if Vince wants to send the crowd home happy, that they put Ronda Rousey Charlotte on last. Number one, it's a championship match. Number 2, these are 2 big names. And if you're going to have the babyface win, it's a great way to send the crowd home happy, and having Charlotte say I quit would, make a lot of fans happy, I think. So I think there's a really good case to be made for this. And you look at the fact that they didn't have any women's main events for WrestleMania. This could be a bit of a throw you a bone type of situation. Well, they weren't the main event of WrestleMania, but Backlash, we're going to make them the main event.
WrestleMania Backlash.
Yeah, exactly. So see, they were a WrestleMania main event. But there's a good case to be made for that. Very good case. I mean, Roman Reigns doesn't have to main event everything, especially if there's no titles on the line. So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I personally think that I wouldn't be shocked either way, but I'm kind of leaning more towards, like we were saying, the I Quit match being the main event, and I could even see Roman, the 6-man tag, opening the show. Because, it just kind of threw, I mean, why not,
Mm-hmm.
It's WrestleMania Backlash, keep things fresh, start the show off high. Roman's obviously, a big star, so start the show off high and get it going. I'm not against that. Not at all. The only reason I'd say no to that is because this is a very top-heavy card. I mean, and there's very, very few matches. I mean, there's 6 matches? Am I counting 6 matches? Which is not a lot. I mean, you look at WrestleMania, there's like 600. So when I look at this, so no, I'm nothing against that. I mean, Roman coming out to open the show, I think he would actually get a babyface pop. And if you've noticed, I'm sure you have, you hear Roman's reactions have been much more positively. People chanting Roman. Like, people are starting to turn on the Roman Reigns camp, and I don't know if that's a trend that'll continue, but that music is it's now iconic. His entrance is 20 minutes long. He'll never be able to do a run-in successfully, because it would be the most unsurprising run-in of all time, because it would take him 20 minutes to get to the ring. But I think that it could open the show. It could. Yeah, I mean, and then you'd main event with Ronda and Charlotte. But cool. So one last question: do you think the brand split's dead? Given all these unifications and people coming over with no explanation, like the announcers don't even care anymore. No one's even making excuses. They're just here from another brand, and you just accept it. Do you think it's dead, quietly dead? I don't think it's yes and no. I don't think I think if you were to ask them, they would be like, no, of course it's still alive. But I think that they're just done making excuses or trying to find reasons to justify why someone is showing up on a different show randomly. So I think no, just because they still want to be able to do like a draft or their whatever specials they do. And October timeframe in the year. So no, because they still want to get every little bit that they can out of it. And I have mixed feelings on the idea of a brand split itself. I think it could have been, and it has all the potential to be really beneficial, but it's all about what you put into it. And obviously that's a whole other topic. But yeah, no, I don't think it's I think in a lot of ways it's obviously dead, but if you were to ask them, no, it's not dead. So they can always have that as a crutch.
Yeah, they want their cake and eat it too. I mean,
Yeah.
I counted. It was like 1 week they were able to this year stay actually true to the rules of nobody comes over. They didn't even have a wild card. They didn't have a quarterly invitational. I think they just did away with it because they knew that if they did that, they'd book themselves into a corner when they just want to be able to violate. They want to say they have a brand split, but also not have a brand split.
Exactly.
It's the most ridiculous. Like I can't stand that. Like to me, brand split, if you do it right, is an exceptional way to build new stars. You have twice the real estate. You don't have to have the same storylines running through, which gives more opportunity for younger stars and all. I mean, there's so many good things that come out of it. But you also have more championships, which dilutes the value of the championships because there's more. But, I mean, anyway, that's definitely a longer conversation. But anyway, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on. It feels like a true I want to just say pay-per-view because it's just so much better. A true pre-pay-per-view show, and I'm glad you're able to come on. But before we go, of course, let everyone know, not just about your social media, but your podcast that we can go and follow.
Yes, again, it was a blast. Thank you again for having me, Matt. But feel free to continue to listen to me on the Kick-Ash podcast. You can find it pretty much anywhere, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. And follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS. But one last question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you looking forward to the pay-per-view or premium live event itself?
Pay-per-view's okay. It's a safe space here. We say pay-per-view.
Yes.
How much I'm looking forward to it now that we've actually previewed it pretty thoroughly, I would say out of 10, given that it's a B pay-per-view, I'd say like a 7 out of 10. Like a 7. I mean, because AJ Styles and Edge really excites me, and Cody Rhodes and Seth really excite me. I mean, those two are really the ones that I'm looking forward to from like a wrestling quality and like who could win. There's cases to be made for both. Those are the two. What about you?
I was going to say 6.5, but probably a strong 7. So right there with you, yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll have to see what happens. And, hey, the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view's in a month, so I'll be definitely hitting you up during that time frame, and I have to have you back on.
Definitely. Sounds great.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks.
You too.
So in today's crazy world, you need to be ready to defend yourself. I mean, that's just the reality of things. People are getting assaulted on the street, robbed, home invasions. So with all this spike in crime, what better way to spend your time than investing in yourself, in your safety, in your family's safety? That's why I'm recommending Impact Defense. ImpactDefense.online is an opportunity for you to learn how to defend yourself in multiple situations. They have a podcast, by the way, that is done weekly, and you can check it out. It's on ImpactDefense.online. They have training that's in person. They have online courses. You can host an event and a lot more. But this is run by Brian, and he has over 20 years in the martial arts and self-defense industry. He's a certified combatives instructor. He's certified in defensive firearms, and he has a black belt in multiple styles of martial arts. He's also joined by two ladies, Jada and Kylie. Both of them are black belts in martial arts and certified firearm instructors as well. Again, their podcast releases every single Monday, a brand new episode. You can check out impactdefense.online for much more information. But guys, I can't stress enough right now, there is nothing more important than your safety. I don't know about you, but when I'm lying in bed and I hear a creak in the house, you always wonder, right? It's either a ghost or you're thinking, oh my God, somebody broke in, right? And imagine the helplessness that you could feel in that moment. But let them help you overcome that fear. Let them help you protect you and your family. Go to impactdefense.online today.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.